Bombshell testimony in Marilyn Mosby's federal trial, the lies the city council president admitted to, and how some say this could impact his credibility.
He's tarnished his reputation more.
A woman calling herself the Bitcoin beauty, charged with scamming people out of nearly $2 billion in a cryptocurrency scheme.
It's as despicable as a scheme as you could possibly come up with.
What charging documents reveal and how you can avoid becoming a victim. Red flags raised over the troubled past of a Maryland DJS leader. Why he was removed from his duties in D.C. after just 6 months. A convicted teenage rapist allowed back in school.
What were you thinking?
Fox 45 News Project Baltimore digs deeper into another rape charge against the same teen. A woman stabbed 11 times and held hostage for 24 hours.
I had got stabbed right here, and then I busted my lip on the steps right here.
First on Fox, her terrifying story of survival.
I'm not dying and leaving the kids behind.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
A major revelation in the federal trial of former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. City Council President Nick Mosby testifying he lied to reporters about a tax lien on his home to keep the truth from his wife. Prosecutors argue Marilyn Mosby lied about that tax lien on mortgage applications for 2 vacation homes in Florida. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. Kai is off tonight. The City Council President's testimony raising questions about how fit he is to hold that office.
Makes his credibility even worse if it's possible to think it was good in the first place.
And that is not the only concerning piece of information to come out of today's proceedings. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost takes a closer look at what happened in court today.
Walking into the federal courthouse in Greenbelt Monday morning.
I feel great.
Do you anticipate another long day?
I'm not sure.
City Council President Nick Mosby reserving his comments for the stand, where under oath taking responsibility for the couple's ballooning tax debt. From the beginning, Marilyn Mosby's defense has been she did not know about the couple's $45,000 tax lien on her home in Baltimore before she bought the 2 vacation homes in Florida. Nick Mosby telling the jury he hid the tax troubles from his wife. These photos of garbage bags, canvas bags, piles, all unopened mail shown to the jury indicate the disorganized mail in the Mosby's home. Taken this year, Nick Mosby says the images are an accurate depiction. An IRS agent testifying that the agency sent the Mosbys as many as 40 letters notifying them of the tax debt and eventual lien. After Marilyn Mosby was first indicted in January of 2022, her legal team scoffed at our questions about the mail.
So you're saying that she didn't open the mail?
It appears that answer is yes. Now the defense argues Marilyn Mosby trusted her husband to take care of the tax problems, especially since Nick says he was the one who handled the couple's tax filings. Nick also admitting to keeping his deep financial trouble a secret. Monday, Nick was asked specifically about this news conference in November of 2020.
Your tax issue's been resolved.
Yes, thank you.
Held outside City Hall when he was asked about the tax lien, then telling the city,
I said that it would be done in the coming days, and I've been able to settle that.
The city council president now telling the jury he lied because he did not want his wife to find out.
You're admitting to having a credibility issue, and you can't have it both ways.
Jeremy Eldridge is an attorney not affiliated with this case, but says Nick Mosby's testimony will make it hard for a jury to believe what he's saying.
And once you admit to having a serious credibility issue in court, it's very difficult to then say, well, I lied then, but I had a good reason for it.
But Nick's time under oath doesn't stop there. Monday, prosecutors allege the city council president repeatedly committed perjury on tax forms. Nick's financial woes date back almost a decade, where from 2014 to 2018, wages were garnished to pay off his student loan debt. His car got repossessed twice, and he fell behind on mortgage payments. Prosecutors also claim in the same years, Nick Mosby wrote off charitable donations. More information about Nick's previous tax filings are expected to come later. Monday afternoon, Nick Mosby finally excused as Marilyn Mosby's mortgage fraud trial continues into the 3rd week. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
As City Council President, Nick Mosby also sits on the Board of Estimates, which approves all city contracts. Political analyst John Dede says this testimony is going to leave voters questioning whether they can trust Mosby to handle the city's business.
All these things coming out create an extreme increase of a lack of trust because of all this that has gone on. And I think that right now, he's got to think about what's the plan 2-3 years down the road. I think voters are going to look at it in the end, and whereas they may have felt sorry for him in some respects regarding Marilyn Mosby, I think a lot of people, this trial is bringing out that really he wasn't really truthful in a lot of things regarding with the feds, regarding with Marilyn Mosby, and a variety of other things. And in many ways, he's tarnished his reputation more.
And this isn't the first time revelations from the federal case against Marilyn Mosby has led to some to question whether Nick Mosby is fit to be city council president. In March of 2022, federal prosecutors released a superseding indictment alleging Mrs. Mosby falsely claimed to get a $5,000 gift from her husband to close on those Florida properties. Prosecutors say Nick Mosby had less than $5,000 in his checking account at the time.
You're the city council president and you have access to millions of taxpayer dollars and you can't figure out your own finances. This opens him up to a lot of things where it could be people asking for favors in exchange for money. So this is a person that should not have access to any taxpayer dollars.
Fox 45 News pressed Mayor Scott about whether he still had confidence in Nick Mosby following that superseding indictment. He didn't give us a direct answer at that point, saying he would let the federal investigation play out. And that brings us to our question of the day. Given his testimony today, should Nick Mosby continue to be city council president? So far, 100% of voters say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Renewed concerns tonight over juvenile crime statewide as a 14 and 15-year-old are arrested for an armed carjacking in northeast Baltimore near Herring Run Park. Police say the teens approached a woman parking her car, flashed a gun, then took her car and drove away. They were arrested a short time later. Now, in Anne Arundel County, police are searching for 5 teen suspects in a robbery outside the Arundel Mills Walmart. Police say the teens stole a man's shoes and assaulted him before running away, and the suspects are still on the run tonight. This all comes as Governor Moore says he's working on a firm juvenile crime plan in Annapolis, but Republicans want to see more concrete details.
The hallmark of what I hope to see in any juvenile justice legislation that's going to make it to my desk can be summarized in one word: accountability.
It's always great to hear the word accountability from a Democrat. He didn't embrace legislative ideas that would actually bring that sort of accountability.
We want to hear what's going to be done to immediately make streets safer.
Center around policies within the Department of Juvenile Services and concerns over Secretary Vincent Schiraldi's leadership. Tonight, Fox 45's Jeff Abel looking into some questions surrounding Schiraldi's Assistant Secretary and Chief of Staff and his impact on current juvenile crime laws in Maryland. Jeff joins us now live with more on this. Jeff.
You know, when it comes to juvenile justice reforms, we are getting a much clearer picture tonight of this state's policies and its policymakers.
That's why we asked.
While holding them accountable is...
When he was named Maryland's Juvenile Services Secretary last year, Vincent Schiraldi brought a mission and a language that sounded all too familiar.
Young people are not just smaller versions of adults.
They are treated as if they are small adults.
When Senator Jill Carter introduced her juvenile justice reform bill 2 years ago, she brought in Mark Schindler, a longtime friend of Schiraldi's, to help lobby.
We know the racial disparities are alarming.
At the time, Schindler blamed many of the state's juvenile justice problems on racial disparities and claimed the softer approach toward juvenile lawbreakers is the most productive approach.
Having served as the director of D.C.'s Juvenile Justice Agency during a period where we implemented many of the types of reforms that are recommended in the legislation today.
In fact, in the 6 months when Schindler served as interim director of juvenile corrections in Washington, similar reforms were implemented. And in that time, our investigation uncovered several reports showing that 10 juveniles who were already under supervision were arrested for murder. 7 other juveniles who were also under supervision had become victims of homicide. Schindler was replaced after 6 months. The Attorney General blamed his leadership for a spike in violent juvenile crime.
This is institutional biases and racism that's baked into the system.
After lobbying for Maryland's juvenile reforms, Schindler became the second in command for Maryland's juvenile services. A DJS spokesman claims Schindler and Secretary Schiraldi are longtime friends, saying they met in the mid-90s. Writing in a statement today, they have worked together as peers, representing different organizations, coalitions, and other entities dedicated to improving juvenile and criminal justice over the years.
You know, given the abundant evidence that the status quo is an abysmal failure.
Former State Senator Bob Casserly fears DJS is on a mission that's in desperate need of reform.
Let's stand up and have, you know, a little bit of courage here to do the right thing for the kids and not simply bend to political nonsense.
Schindler was also a longtime employee of the Justice Policy Institute, an institute which Vincent Schiraldi himself established. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. We have also heard from critics who worked with Schiraldi while he was corrections commissioner in New York City, where he oversaw Rikers Island. New York lawmakers and police leaders argue Schiraldi pushed the prison and the overall correction system to their breaking points.
He lied to us about violence. He was more into inmate programming instead of safety and security. It was a real debacle.
Nobody thought he did a good job. Nobody can say that he improved the criminal justice system or the jails in New York City. He made them much worse, period.
Lawmakers in Annapolis say they're planning to take a closer look at the Department of Juvenile Services. Senate President Bill Ferguson says there is a high-level agreement on changes for the department, but no specifics have been announced. Senator Cory McCray from Baltimore is drafting legislation for more transparency within DJS, saying he hasn't had a working relationship with the department since Schiraldi took the helm. A Maryland woman with the nickname Bitcoin Beauty is federally indicted in a nearly $2 billion cryptocurrency scheme. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with the fallout and what we're learning about this suspect tonight. Keith.
Mary, U.S. Attorney Eric Barron calls the alleged fraud in this case, quote, staggering. And his reminder to people tonight, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. At the U.S. Federal Courthouse in downtown Baltimore, Brenda Changa, a.k.a. Bitcoin Beauty, walks out of court Monday, flanked by her attorney and supporters. Moments earlier, prosecutors say Changa, one of three named in the indictment, pleaded guilty for her role as top promoter in a fraudulent hyperfund crypto pyramid scheme that bilked nearly $2 billion from investors worldwide. Her attorney, Jonathan Van Hoven. What's your reaction to the circumstance, the charge?
I can't make any comment.
According to the federal indictment, Changa, a Severna Park woman, promoted hyperfund membership packages from June 2020 through early 2022, which she claimed guaranteed investors high returns, including alleged hyperfunds crypto asset mining operations associated with a Fortune 500 company. Changa.
This is the only way everyone else is going to hear about this thing that we have, this fantastic thing that we have.
Seen here on YouTube with an overview pitch.
So you all are here today to get some knowledge, and then you decide what you want to do with that information.
Prosecutors say Changa admitted that she personally received at least $3 million for her participation in the scheme. Christopher Alexander.
I know that it's new, it's confusing to people.
Is a cryptocurrency expert and chief analytics officer for Pioneer Development Group. He has no connection to the case, but details why potential involvement with cryptocurrency can be attractive and a potentially dangerous moneymaker.
First of all, you should never put your money in something that you don't know what it does. There are huge returns that are possible. And when you have opportunities to make that kind of money, unfortunately, you attract some very, very disreputable people who will take advantage of people to get at that money.
Well, two other people, Sam Lee of Australia and Rodney Burton, also known as Bitcoin Rodney of Miami, were also indicted. Meantime, Changa could face up to 5 years in prison. Her sentencing date has not yet been set. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
The road to the big game is sponsored by Royal Farms.
Well, taking a live look at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, the site of Super Bowl 58. In just 13 days, the Kansas City Chiefs will be taking on the San Francisco 49ers in a rematch of Super Bowl 54. The 49ers have opened as a 1-point favorite, but the Chiefs have won 2 playoff games as an underdog, including yesterday's win, of course, over the Ravens. Morgan Atzett joins us now with how the Ravens are processing this loss.
They probably don't like that live shot.
No, I don't think they do.
Now, as the Ravens cleared out their locker room today, the overwhelming theme from players was they know they were the best team in the entire NFL in the regular season and didn't show that in the AFC Championship against Kansas City. Can't put this on the Ravens defense after a rocky start. That group shut Kansas City out in the second half and did not give up a touchdown after the first few minutes of the second quarter. This one's got to fall on the offense. 3 turnovers, 2 from Lamar Jackson, a 1-game sample on his biggest stage that was not up to his MVP regular season play.
Yeah, we had some opportunities out there. Just got to take advantage of them. Can't turn the ball over. Fumble, interception, stuff like that. They gave him the opportunity to, put points on the board and win the game.
I told him to stand up tall. He's had a great season. His performance today was all heart. He fought. He went out there and gave it everything he had, so I don't think that's anything that I'd be disappointed in.
Now the Ravens take what-if questions with them to an earlier offseason than they wanted. It's one that has a ton of free agents, not a lot of cap room, and could have the same amount of talent from John Harbaugh's coaching staff leave them as players this offseason.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, Governor Moore announcing a new plan to target poverty with a hefty price tag. Fox 45 News presses him on where that money will come from. A Baltimore County woman sharing her story of survival, how she's moving forward after she was held hostage and stabbed 11 times by an admitted killer.
The week looks pretty quiet, but I am tracking one weather maker. I'll let you know exactly when that system arrives here in Maryland and what our rain and snow chances look like from it tonight on Fox 45 News at 10.
And after the break, new details on a Project Baltimore investigation that found a teenage convicted rapist was allowed to attend a Baltimore City school. Another mother comes forward saying he victimized her daughter as well. New details in a Project Baltimore investigation that found a 15-year-old convicted rapist was allowed to attend a Baltimore City high school. As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps reports, a second mother has come forward saying the same teen also victimized her daughter.
How in the world does this happen?
When Project Baltimore broke the news, for many, it was shocking.
Are we going to allow convicted rapists to attend public schools?
My God.
A 15-year-old convicted rapist taking classes inside of a Baltimore City school.
And guess what? Parents and students were not made aware that a rapist was in the school, even though he's a convicted rapist.
For many, it was simply hard to believe.
I'm very angry. Very.
But this mother already knew.
This has consumed me. It's impacted my relationships with family, friends, my job.
Because she says the same 15-year-old Patterson student sexually abused her daughter.
You knew what he did. He confessed, and then you agreed to put him back in school? Like, what were you thinking?
Project Baltimore is not identifying this woman to protect her child, but she's the second mother to speak with us.
Yep, yes.
Two women who say their daughters were victimized by the same teen.
I wouldn't wish what we have gone through on my worst enemy.
The first case went to court in December. The 15-year-old entered a plea in Harford County Court to a second-degree rape charge involving a 3-year-old relative. He was given probation and counseling, while ordered to have no unsupervised contact with children under 15. In January, the 15-year-old, now convicted rapist, returned to class at Patterson with nearly 1,300 other students. The public was not alerted because he's a juvenile.
You want to protect one child versus the well-being and safety of 1,300 others. I'm not understanding how that's okay.
Especially now that we know there's a second alleged victim. According to court documents obtained by Project Baltimore, the charges came down in September for an incident that happened in April 2022 in Baltimore County, when the alleged victim was 2 years old and the accused assailant was 13. Now he's 15 and facing multiple charges, including second-degree rape, sex abuse, and second-degree assault battery in the Baltimore County case. Remember, the now 15-year-old already pleaded to a second-degree rape charge in another case in Harford County in December. So what this means is when the 15-year-old returned to Patterson High School, he wasn't just a convicted rapist. He was also facing an additional rape charge in a second case. When recommending probation for this 15-year-old sex offender, which allowed him back into school, the Department of Juvenile Services was allowed to consider the pending charges in Baltimore County. But Fox 45 cannot confirm if DJS knew about the second case.
I just can't wrap my head around it. He should have gone to jail because he confessed to that, but instead, it just seems like he got a slap on the wrist. And I don't think that's right. And it seems like the law is on his side.
Under state law, a juvenile sex offender who is not on the registry cannot be barred from attending school in person, except in certain cases. Baltimore City Schools told Fox 45 in a statement that in order to remove the student from the school, the district has to follow specific legal protocols and provide specific evidence of an imminent threat of serious harm to the health and safety of other students and staff.
It's like you can't make that up.
This mother says a teenager with one rape victim and an alleged second victim should be considered a threat of serious harm to students at Patterson.
Now this is two families whose lives are forever changed. Like this, doesn't just impact the people that it happened to. It's so much bigger than that.
Project Baltimore has been reaching out to lawmakers about this 15-year-old rapist who is taking classes inside a Maryland public school. In the coming days, we will show you their plans and how one lawmaker has already taken action. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Project Baltimore wants to hear from you. Do you have a story to share about your child's education or a concern you'd like our team to investigate? Call the tip line on your screen or send an email to projectbaltimore@foxbaltimore.com. You can also find us on social media.
I'm Atrell Nashar in Washington with what we're learning about how the U.S. may respond to a drone attack that killed 3 American troops in Jordan.
And here's a preview of what to expect for your Tuesday. Similar to today, just not quite as windy. We are looking at a mostly cloudy day ahead of us with temperatures starting near freezing and ending in the low to mid 40s. I'll let you know exactly when we're going to warm things up just a little bit and when we could also see a couple of showers this week in a few minutes on Fox 45 News at 10.
And before we go to break, a look at the traffic circle there in Towson. A nice winter evening. Stay with us. We'll be right back. President Biden is vowing retaliation after 3 U.S. soldiers were killed during a drone attack on U.S. forces in Jordan. National correspondent Audra El-Nashar reports on the calls for an aggressive response.
We shall respond is President Biden's pledge after 3 American Army soldiers were killed and dozens more injured in a drone strike in northeast Jordan. The president says Iran-backed militia are responsible. Iran denies involvement. It follows a series of escalations in the region tied to Israel's war in Gaza against Hamas, which the U.S. designates as a terrorist group and is funded by Iran.
We do not seek another war. We do not seek to escalate. But we will absolutely do what is required to protect ourselves. What that looks like and when that comes, I'm just not able to say right now.
The latest drone strike is the deadliest, but far from the first confrontation with Iran-backed forces since the October 7th Hamas attacks. U.S. military installations in Iraq and Syria have been hit more than 150 times. Political pressure building on the commander-in-chief to strike Iran directly. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham tweeting, "Hit Iran now, hit them hard." Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says in a statement, "Our enemies are emboldened, and they will remain so until the United States imposes serious, crippling costs, not only on frontline terrorist proxies, but on their Iranian sponsors who wear American blood as a badge of honor." Experts are split on whether directly attacking Iran ultimately serves U.S. interests.
This is a time to try to cap off the tit for tat, get it stopped. Convince the Iranians they can't afford to play this game anymore.
Former Defense Secretary Mark Esper says the first move should be striking Iranian targets in Iraq and Syria.
And I'd see how that works. If the attacks continue, then I'd work my way up those options and eventually work your way into striking targets within Iran.
There's also a fear that the U.S. response, whatever that looks like, could disrupt hostage negotiations between Israel and Hamas. The White House argues it shouldn't and says there's a lot of work to do before a deal is reached. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Should the U.S. conduct a military response to the killing of 3 U.S. service members? So far, 80% of the people who voted say yes. To make your voice heard, go to foxbaltimore.com, vote and click on the Pulse tab. Coming up, a Baltimore County woman recounts a terrifying 24 hours in which she was held hostage by an admitted killer, how she says one persistent thought helped save her life. And the governor unveils his plan to tackle poverty, how he wants to do it, and the concerns about the price tag. We are continuing to follow 3 big stories. Governor Moore calls on communities to submit plans to tackle poverty. Fox 45 News presses him on where he's going to get the money for his Enough Act. A DoorDash driver tells police she was carjacked and robbed by a man pretending to be a customer. The latest on this investigation into what's becoming a troubling trend. And a Baltimore County woman shares her story of survival after an admitted killer held her hostage and stabbed her 11 times during a 24-hour standoff.
You could barely walk. You'd lost a lot of blood. When you finally made it out, how did you feel at that exact moment?
I just kept thinking he's going to come up behind me.
And we begin there, the woman reliving her terrifying ordeal in a conversation with Vincent Hill in a story you're seeing first on Fox.
Bull Sterling ain't do that.
The agonizing pain of a female, live streamed on Instagram.
Anthony.
Now Erica Hart, sitting down with Fox 45 to share her story of survival.
One of the stab wounds on my neck was right here. I had got stabbed right here, and then I busted my lip on the steps right here. And then 2 of the stab wounds were over here.
The man responsible,
The next day after he came home.
31-year-old Antonio Hart.
That was the Antonio I knew. He was telling me, like, how we were gonna go. He was like, should we drive off a cliff? Should I have you tied to me?
During an hours-long standoff, Erica was stabbed 11 times.
You said I'm blue?
That's why I'm trying to keep you warm.
I couldn't move. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't feel this at all. My back was soaking wet.
So you weren't able to walk at this point?
I
You were
couldn't
just
do
on
nothing.
the floor.
He knew I couldn't walk.
While you're laying there, though, what's running through your head?
I kept telling myself I have to control my bleeding because I'm not dying and leaving the kids behind.
Get up.
But Erica says the man who stabbed her wasn't the man she knew.
So let's talk about mental health. You said there's 2 people you knew, Antonio Hart and Rambo. What's the difference?
Antonio Hart is a very loving person. He is the most loyal person you could ever meet.
Who was Rambo?
Rambo was evil.
Get the hostage negotiator here right now.
Rambo was angry.
Yeah, Rambo. I'm going out with a bang.
I think for black men, they're very stubborn with their mental health.
One thing weighing heavy on his mind, she says.
I need some confessions to do about murders and all that before I die. You hear me?
Confessing to several murders, including a 2010 murder Sterling Matthews is serving a 115-year sentence for.
Not a day goes past he didn't talk about Sterling.
I feel bad. It hurt me to my heart. Sterling Matthews doing a life sentence behind the dog.
It wasn't until we were sitting in the house that he was confessing to me about it. And it was him. He had the Hellraiser mask. And it was just at that time there was like a no snitch rule, and Sterling, he held his loyalty and took that charge.
The one thing that kept Erica going.
What kept you alive?
Mason. That kid he's so tough, so strong for a 6-year-old. He's so brave. I knew I would break him.
Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent mentioned Sterling Matthews, currently serving a 115-year sentence. He was 17 at the time of the murder and always maintained his innocence. He shared his side of the story with Fox 45 News last week.
Did you shoot and kill Daquan Burks?
No, not at all. I had nothing to do with it. Never. Always told the people I was innocent. Had nothing to do with it. Wasn't even there. They wouldn't do what they supposed to do as far as it's like thorough investigation.
Matthews is scheduled for a post-conviction hearing in March. For more on Sterling Matthews, including his mother's alibi for him the night of the murder, head to foxbaltimore.com. Police say they are searching for a blue Honda Civic in connection to Saturday's pileup on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. The crash happened during dense fog. 43 cars were involved. 13 people were injured, including 2 people were sent to shock trauma. Investigators say the Honda Civic was driving at high speeds and could have contributed to the crash. Anybody with information is urged to call MDTA police at the number right there on your screen. Baltimore police say a 29-year-old man was shot in the face just outside of Lexington Market. It happened around 3:30 this afternoon. Fox 45 News was live on the scene when several streets and the nearby metro station were shut down. The 29-year-old victim is expected to be okay. 2 suspects were arrested. Baltimore police are searching for a suspect after a DoorDash driver says she was carjacked at gunpoint in East Baltimore. According to a police report, the woman was getting out of her car to deliver a pizza on East 28th Street when a man came up and told her he was waiting for a DoorDash order. He then pulled a gun on her, demanded money, and drove away with her car. Now, this is the latest case involving a delivery driver as a victim. Last year, a pizza delivery driver was shot in the face while delivering food in a neighborhood outside of Druid Hill Park. And in 2022, 51-year-old Cheryl McCormick, a wife and mother of 3, was shot and killed while accompanying her friend on a DoorDash delivery in Northeast Baltimore. That friend then opening up to Fox 45 News.
He opened the car door, told her, "Give me the phone, give me your pocketbook." She said, "No, I'm not giving you anything," and he shot her right in the head.
The woman in this latest case thankfully wasn't hurt. Police data shows there have been 35 carjackings in Baltimore so far this year. Governor Moore is unveiling the Enough Act, part of his agenda to target poverty in Maryland communities. But his plan comes with a hefty price tag. Fox 45's Jessica Babb presses the governor on how he plans to fund his proposal.
Inside Life Church Ministries in Brooklyn.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. We stand here and we do say enough.
State and local leaders are saying enough is enough.
That will help us tackle the root causes of poverty. Communities know what they want. They know what they need.
That's why, as part of Governor Wes Moore's legislative agenda, he's introducing the Enough Act.
Enough will channel targeted private, philanthropic, and state resources towards communities across our states with high rates of generational child poverty.
If legislation passes, the Enough Act would allocate $15 million for communities struggling with poverty to tap into. It requires community leaders to submit proposals which could be selected, targeting the specific needs of those communities.
Leaders in our communities will provide the vision. The state will provide the support.
You said this was going to be a mix of public and private funding. Who exactly is footing the bill for this?
So we'll have certain capital that's coming from the state, and you've seen our proposed budget. We have capital allocated for it. But part of the beauty of the Enough Act is it will involve the philanthropic community. That is not just going to be about state capital and deploying state capital in places that we think are best, but really working with the community, hearing from the community, and then utilizing public, private, and philanthropic capital to be able to make those impacts.
But with Maryland's state deficit,
the governor should be looking to cut spending, not add spending, in a